Namaskar. Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. This is a special broadcast, and joining me today is Priyanka Deo. And Priyanka has some breaking news as to what India is thinking about this whole thing. Just to give you a context, I'm going to talk about two incidents that happened in the last few hours, and we will touch upon that. But let's first welcome the guest of the evening, Priyanka Deo. Priyanka, namaskar and welcome to P Guru's channel. How are you?
Namaste. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
So, Priyanka, sorry that I'm making you stay up so late to join this live. I know you've had a long overseas trip, and it does take its toll. But this is important. Viewers, two things that happened. Two things that happened. One is that there was this flight that was supposed to be coming to Chicago. I think it was from Delhi, if I remember correctly. Then it had to be emergency landed in Iqaluit, or a small no-name place in Canada. So what might have happened, I'm just basically connecting the dots. I could be wrong. This is preliminary information. It is possible that some sort of a message came to the pilots when they entered Canadian airspace. See, the way these planes fly is they go over the North Pole. So when they come into Chicago, they go across. They have to cross Canada and come in. Something has happened there, I think. Otherwise, they wouldn't land the thing in an emergency when Chicago is just 45 minutes away from there,
Yep.
or something like that, not very far. So that is one thing. Second thing that has happened is that questions have been asked, and I showed you a video of this one, the presser in Washington, D.C., where Matthew Miller did not refute the claim of a reporter that the mails, there were 7 Air India planes that got threat messages there was a bomb aboard, and these emails originated from the United States. He didn't say a word. He did not refute it, and usually they do. And why excuse me, Matthew Miller did not refute it? I hope he gives a clarification on this, because I thought I heard it that way. I don't want to be wrong on this, because if it is like that, it is a serious consequences. So these are the things that have happened, but India has decided to take it to a next level. Priyanka is going to share with us what she has found out. Over to you, Priyanka.
Well, Shri, thank you. And those incidents are really relevant because they've just happened over the past few hours, right? I got lucky because I fly from Chicago to Delhi very often. So I am on that Air India flight. So when I read the news, I was quite shocked. But, the truth of the matter is that India has reached its breaking point, its absolute breaking point. Tensions are at an all-time low. On October 14th, which was yesterday, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau uh, and his government basically openly accused India of involvement in criminal activities on Canadian soil. Now, he even implicated Amit Shah, which is India's home minister. Um, But the problem is accusations, and it's accusations from the highest level of the Canadian government. If the prime minister is accusing a whole country of something and Amit Shah of something, where's the evidence? Where is the proof? Present the evidence, present something that explains why you're accusing India of anything. That's the problem. And now when they're called out on it, Trudeau doesn't say anything about it. So it's kind of like an empty threat that he's giving, an empty accusation. He's also, I believe, accused Ajit Doval, who is the national security advisor of India. But despite the lack of proof, Canada continues to actually interfere in India's internal affairs, as we saw on this flight, right? Air India coming from the North Pole into Canada and flying into American airspace. A bunch of airlines do it, right? So Shri, I think you're on to something. It still, of course, has yet to be confirmed, but why land in Canada? I think it's a small airport. I was looking at the location of it, Shri, but I think it's in the middle of nowhere, right? It's an international airport, but it's one of the smaller ones, and it is further from Chicago than, it's quicker to get to Chicago, basically. So it might have happened. It very well might be intentional, just based on what is going on and what has happened in the last 24, 48 hours. Now, this is not the first time that this has happened, right? For years, Canada has actually, under Trudeau, refuse to cooperate with Indian law enforcement consistently. And it's also, of course, as we know, and it's headlined before in global news, not just in India and in the US and in Canada, but globally, it has made headlines for safe harboring Khalistani terrorists. Now, there's a complete my issue is, and I've done several videos on this over the past couple of years, so this is ongoing. It's not like this is an overnight sort of thing, but the inability to kind of address these Khalistani and separatist elements in Canada, especially with Canadian elections coming up front, right? Every time he needs the Sikh vote. So how far is Trudeau going to go just to get elected again? It shows that he's willing to harbor terrorists. He's willing to harbor and protect, I would say, separatist elements in Canada. And as a result, I think India-Canada relations have reached a historic low because India has, as I said before, reached its breaking point. They're ready to just say, you know what, just get lost right, at this point. So I'm wondering what India is actually going to do, because it is considering now, in my opinion, it is considering labeling Canada as a state sponsor of terrorism. And this is absolutely true. This is something that the world needs to recognize. The third thing that happened, Shri, was the diplomat got sent back, right? That was the third thing that happened over the past couple of days. So I think, relations have deteriorated. India has actually done, I think, more than what it should have done, because it's up to Trudeau to step in and, kind of make relations work at this point. He's not done anything. I think he's deteriorating them further. And now I think India's at a point where it's just, saying it's ready to let go. I mean, we don't just go away, I think, basically. I could use stronger language, but we're live streaming, so I won't.
Thank you so much, Priyanka. Two things I want to add, viewers. In case you're wondering if this is all politics, you would not be wrong. 6 provinces in Canada are headed for elections in the next few weeks, starting with British Columbia on the 19th of October, 4 days from now. Where are the NDP in strength? British Columbia. Who wants to break this hold? Both Justin Trudeau as well as Pierre Poilievre. So that's the first one. Then Saskatchewan, and then Northwest Territory, bunch of other states. I have given you a reference link, viewers. You can look at that and understand how many cities are going for election, how many provinces are going for elections. So politics could be one reason, but to ratchet it to this level, I'm going to read verbatim a message that a passenger on this particular flight sent to his spouse. And I'm just going to read you. There is one line that is there that leads me to believe something horrific could have happened. Hold on a second. I just got a call from him, that is spouse, informing me that there was a bomb threat and that they were investigating. They were asked to leave the flight with the blanket, and this is at 5:15 a.m. CST, and are on the airport. Their phones are also not with them, but were asked to leave in the flight. I wonder if the wording of that email was like, we've got some phones rigged that will set off or something of that nature. I don't know. It seems like somewhere somebody has been told, you can take liberties with whatever messaging you want to do. We've got your back. Guess what? Pannu, US will be the first one to dump you like a hot potato. Okay? Understand this. This has happened in the past. Don't think that anybody is going to come to your help. This is just my personal, unasked for advice. But this is serious. And we have to see how India is going to respond, because I don't think India has still gotten grips to this, because this is like 5:15 a.m. CS. This was like 12 hours ago. And then what happened? After the plane landed in this airport, it's called Iqaluit or something like that. Where was there another plane that took them from there to Chicago? I mean, this is an international flight. That's a big plane. Would they have had a spare plane? Priyanka, I'm not a big fan of how Air India is, kicking and screaming itself into modernity. But I will tell you this, all the passengers understand what Air India is trying to do, and they're all appreciative. Sometimes there are some inconveniences, but we love. I have Every time I try to go directly to India, I'm going in Air India. It doesn't matter. There are a few inconveniences. So what? It has improved with every flight. It's become better. So an international flight gets grounded in Canada. I don't know if they could have requisitioned another plane for them, and this is putting people through so much inconvenience. 7 planes where the message was sent that there is a bomb on your on the plane. And again, if you take a look at what happened, 2 planes were blown up in midair. Actually, one plane went up, blew up in midair. The second one, luckily, the plane got delayed and it went off on the tarmac in Japan. 2 airport workers in Japan got killed because of that. But what was the fault of the innocent Canadians, Americans who were on that plane? What did they have to do anything with the assassination back in India?
Mhm.
See, people get hot-blooded, and this needs to be curbed, in my opinion. Anyway, this is just my 2 cents. Priyanka, how do you see this play out in normal life? Let us say India labels Canada as a sponsor of Khalistani terrorism. What happens after that?
Well, I think, it's what happens after, but we just need to recognize for a second, Shri, that what's been happening, right? For years, Canada has actually refused to cooperate with Indian law enforcement, as I said before. It's provided safe harbor to Khalistani terrorists, right? The inability to address Khalistani elements, along with, recent attacks, I would say, on Indian diplomats and leaders and planes, which has Indians as well on that flight, right? It might have international passengers as well. It has children on that flight as well, or on those flights. I mean, just to say it's dragged India Canada relations to a historic low is an understatement, right? This is, if you think about it, what happens if, and I'm just putting it out there for the audience, and Shri, you too, India should, I think, label Canada as a state sponsor of terrorism. It's a designation that the world needs to recognize that Trudeau is doing this because, look, there's politicians in every country, right? Maybe politicians go low or they stoop low to win elections. That happens too, right? We've seen that happen. But are you willing to sponsor terrorism just to win your election, to get your Sikh votes? Is that what's happening over here? Are you willing to just ignore issues, innocent passengers being blown up? Are you willing to just not address it? Are you willing to blame other countries for, killing people and killing Nijjar, for example, right? He was a Khalistani terrorist. I think Trudeau said he accused India of being involved in it. India asked, okay, I believe Dr. Jaishankar asked, okay, well, give us evidence that India was involved in it. He's yet to provide evidence. That happened in 2023. What is he doing over here? How low is he willing to stoop? What kind of leader? What does it say about him as a leader that he's willing to do this just to win an election or whatever his motive may be? I find it I'm curious to see what happens immediately on the 20th, right? After the 19th. Does he just suddenly address all of these things? Does he suddenly pay a nice visit to India and shake hands with Modi? I'm really curious to see what he does after he wins the election. I'm really curious to see what he does if he loses the election. What happens to Canada if they lose the election? Because a person that comes in has a really tough task of holding things together.
Yes, indeed. And these 6 provincial elections will perhaps set the tone for when Trudeau would be forced to call for elections. I don't think he's going to last the full term, but that's just me saying. In terms of sanctions, right? India might say that, okay, because you're doing this, we are going to lay these sanctions. And one of them could be that there could be some more scrutiny on visa issuance. They might ask Canada to shut down their consulates, and just to emergency basis, we will issue some visas, things of that nature. It
Which is
also
unfair.
hurts.
Shri, it's so unfair. And sorry to interrupt you, but it's so unfair and it makes me really mad because I have a bunch of friends who are studying in Canada. I mean, these are Indian students who have worked really hard to get where they are. I know a bunch of students because I work with youth who are applying to Canadian universities. They want to start a new life in Canada. Is it going to be blocked because of one guy, one moron who's who just wants to win an election, because apparently it is. It's now affecting the common man. It's now affecting visa issues. It's now affecting everyday citizens. And that is completely unfair. That's completely uncalled for.
Thank you. My Bluetooth headset just dropped off. Um, See, the takeaway here is that Canada perhaps is now beginning to realize that perhaps it has taken on too many immigrants, because what has happened is they are beginning to curb some of the things like their permanent residency permits, also lower wage permits. All these things are being scaled back 30%, 25%, and so on. And the number of student visas that they're going to give, even that is going to be going down. Just for those who have not seen this, I've said this a couple of times now. 427,000 students are enrolled in Canada in their colleges. 427,000. Average cost per year for an Indian student is $36,100. If you multiply those two, it comes to a cool 15 billion plus.
Mm-hmm.
That is the kind of money that is there. And these are all people who are paying for their fees from India. They don't have any sugar daddy or anybody sitting in Canada. So this is a huge deal. Some of their universities will close down if they stop coming to Canada. And I think that is one of the casualties of all this. But I'm hoping that reason will prevail and that something is going to happen. Clearly, this is scorched earth policy on part of Justin Trudeau. And to what end, I don't know. This is really, really unfortunate. Be that as it may, we'll have to wait and see what is going to happen. And if who knows, Canada might blurt out saying US made me do it. Possible. I'm not ruling that out also. At some point the pressure is going to give. So Priyanka,
Yeah.
we have a few questions from our viewers, and if you don't mind taking those questions.
Sure.
Manoj Soma wants to know, in this situation, context of war, can India be more towards Israel? All of us know Israel is the real power and it had the guts to control. US comments of Trudeau is a joke. Madam, your views.
I think we should. Thank you. Thank you for that question. Well, you're right there. Trudeau is a joke. But I think we should stick to the topic, Shri, a little bit, because this is really,
Yes,
really
indeed.
important.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
I think that, with all due respect to Israel, for this question is actually, if you ask my views, it's a guy who, Trudeau is a guy who claims to respect India's sovereignty, right? And this has been happening for years, and it's going on currently. He claims to respect India's sovereignty, but at the same time, Shri, he allows Canada to be a breeding ground of terrorists, a breeding ground of anti-India activity. There has been no cooperation. We've seen that with our diplomat situation, right? And this is not the first time that diplomats have been told to leave the country, right? There's no willingness to bring terrorists to justice. It's just very dangerous political games, right? With that being said, with 500,000 students, almost 500,000, right? Over 420,000 students in Canadian universities, how are they going to survive if suddenly there's no flights? There's no Air India flights they are reliant on, and I'm noticing it because in the university that I'm at right now, students are already booking their tickets to go to India in December. So now if there's no flights to Canada, if there's no cooperation with Canada, what does that say about the next 10 years between Canada and India? What does that say about the future of the country? What does that say about Canada's economy? It is a huge issue. Next, I think.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. And viewers, I'm sorry, are you done or you wanted to add
I'm
something?
done.
Okay. So viewers, one thing I want to tell you, there are many cities along the border of Canada in the US side, and when they are booking tickets for India, right, if there are seats available from Canada to India direct, then they'll do that small hop from US to Canada and then get on the Canadian flight and then fly across to India. So these are all very, very common. So it's not just going to affect Canadian citizens, but it's also going to affect American-based students also who might be planning to take this route. And let's hope that reason prevails. And this has just gone a little too far, and dragging Amit Shah's name, that to Washington Post article.
But it's affecting everyone. I was planning to go to India in December. My dad told me, don't take the Air India flight, book another flight this time around because of the bomb threats, right? And it's true, from Chicago, there is a flight that goes to Toronto, and then Toronto all the way to Delhi. So, or to Mumbai, I'm not sure which one. But he told me, forget booking that. Let's go on another airline. So it's impacting everybody.
Yeah, then you become a multi-stop flight. Either you have to go to Newark and then take another flight, or New York, or Frankfurt, London. I mean,
And
it
three
boggles my mind.
stops, 2+ stops with a 3-year-old with you is not a joke.
Very true, very true. And Sanjay, thank you so much for your super sticker. And that brings us to a close of today's program. Thank you so much, Priyanka. Priyanka came in at very short notice to talk to us about this. We have been talking for about a few hours before this news hit, and we said we have to go live on this. Because of some crossed wires, we couldn't do it sooner than this. But I think India is waking up to the reality that things are not very well between India and Canada. Thank you so much, Priyanka. And we'll be back again with Priyanka in breaking news in the next few days and weeks to come. Namaskar.
No say. Thanks.